Hey, as we know, life is full of surprises, both good and bad, and the day-to-day journey is full of unforeseen obstacles, and sometimes it's hard for us to see our way through. Beyond the normal mundane and where unscripted dreams live, join us for thought-provoking discussions and interviews to help us navigate through the fog and create our own path. We are the Unscripted Dream Podcast, operating outside the margins to motivate and inspire our audience. Well, today's episode, man, is literally titled Talking Off the Ledge. There's a few ways of how to approach this, but I guess when you think of talking off the ledge, I guess it's safe to say you're talking too much. A lot of talking, less thinking. I'm gonna let Marcus basically sit in the captain's chair for this episode, and I'll just chime in from there.
Yeah, all right. So yeah, man, talk yourself off the ledge. Right.
Off the
This is
ledge.
this is more so about saving yourself from what I have established is a critical failure. Like when you see those, when you see like you are watching a movie and you say like critical meltdown, like when they're in the plane and like on like the lights are flashing and stuff, you like no, like it's about to something about to blow up or something about to melt down completely. Like that's what I'm talking. I'm talking like critical failure right now. It's something that has just like a major devastating impact on your life and your ability to function as you previously were. So when I was thinking about this, and I'm gonna share a story here after you probably get some of Joe's input. But like these are what like here are these extreme situations where the actions that you take can have, like I said, like just a devastating impact
Mhm.
on your life. So it might be you falling out with somebody, or you just like you let your impulses get the best of you, and in that moment that decision, that poor decision that you make just like really set you back. And it might set you back so bad that you are never able to recover. And you have to pursue like an entirely different, like an entirely different profession. A good example, like think like if you watch baseball, think about it like Pete Rose. Pete Rose is like someone who famous, like, I think he might have been a Hall of Famer. I don't know exactly, but he bet on baseball. This guy's like blackball. I don't know if something has changed. Like or what's the NBA guy that they don't want to talk about? Donnie, who like was betting on games and stuff and
Yeah.
things like that. Yeah, yeah. And then I think those are the most applicable. But these guys have like they made a decision that impacted their careers where they can't even do what they wanted to do. Like Pete Rose, if you look him up, like he was a good. I think he was. I mean I don't know. I think the guy might have been a Hall of Famer. I might be wrong, but he was pretty influential like figure in the game. This guy betting on baseball, and now he can't do anything like affiliated with the league or anything like that. Or you look at Jeff Donahue. The funny thing is, if you watch that documentary that's on Netflix, like this man was doing well, and he just wanted like a little bit more, and that's what kind of caused him. I don't know what he's doing now, coaching like you're doing something in like some kids league or something. Which I mean, you know, that's respectable work, but you're not getting the NBA money anymore. So I think that you think about like these actions kind of that are just they just feel like devastating, and you never recover, right? And in these situations, it's like, well, if you're in a situation where you're like, oh, well, you're about to do something that's catastrophic, then like, what do you do? Like, can you save yourself? There's a movie. It's called like Man on the Ledge or something. This guy's like outside on the ledge. The guy from Avatar. I don't know what his name is, but it's like, what brings you back inside to the safe place to where you're grounded and footed? Like, what gets you in there? Like, who can save you if you can't save yourself? And that's what I think about when I think about this is that you're just trying to, like, you're really trying to, you're in a situation where, like, you could just make a decision to keep yourself safe, or you can go off the deep end and you're probably going to have to restart the game because you about to game over yourself. So,
Sabotage.
exactly. Exactly. So, Joe, I guess you were talking about like talking, like actually, I guess you think about somebody like actually verbally getting themselves into these circumstances. I guess you can, I mean, maybe if you want to expound on that, but I guess in a little bit here, I'm going to share. like what I think is a prime example, something I did myself that was definitely an indicator that I was playing a little bit too close to the edge on my part.
Well, as far as like talking yourself off ledge, man, from a verbal standpoint, I think that that's like the biggest or the fastest route to getting to that, right? Communication, obviously, and actually just saying it. So, like, say you're in a situation with someone and they may not be privy to the information that you're privy to, and you're not supposed to give them that information or whatnot for whatever reasons. Maybe it's part of your occupation or whatnot, right? So say like you're law enforcement or something, and you're privy to some evidence, and you're not supposed to tell the suspect that information. It doesn't matter if you had a relationship with them or not, right? Or you knew them outside of whatever the scene of the incident has occurred. But the whole thing is like you swore on oath, right, in confidence that you wouldn't reveal certain information to people. So basically, what I'm trying to say, man, is like there's been so many instances in our lives to where we may not exactly tell people information, or we may give too much information and we may not even know it. But there's also been situations where we're privy to that and we're giving people too much information to the point where they can use it against you. So that's what I mean by that. Like you're giving people too much information to basically step over you, put you in a bad situation. And I'm not saying it's on them, it's more so on you. So like I'm more so thinking of like when in doubt, don't say nothing. I feel like that's the best motto ever. So that's what I mean as far as like talking yourself off the ledge. Cause there may be instances, and I know myself, right? I've even done it on this podcast, but but I know myself where, if you're motivated or there's some passion behind certain topic or something you're passionate about, you're going to expound upon that, right? And it's going to get to a point where you may overshare, information. And that's just the whole point I was just getting at is that sometimes you may share more than what you really need to share. And sometimes people that are really good at manipulating others, they're good at asking the right questions to bring that out of.
Yeah, there's a good skit. I don't know if anybody listening here listens to like RDC World and watches their skits and stuff like that, but they have a good one where they're like giving the interview. And then it's like all these questions just to like they throw you like a softball, they don't ask you like some controversial topic, and then they're trying. It's exactly what Joe was saying. I wish I could tell you the skit like the exact like one that it is, but I can't think about it right now. But pretty funny. But so yeah, that's one way. I think that's one way to like you can do it yourself. I think social media kind of allows for that too. Like we kind of I think we were talking about Joe and I were talking about
Yourself.
something like last week. It's like, man, like you do this to yourself, And I think that's the thing is that we can like there's one way to like like talk yourself off the ledge, and then there's another point to where you're like in a position where like you are not like you're not knowing that you're doing it yourself, like you're not knowing that you're actually doing it. So that's what
Oh,
giving an
you know what?
example.
Before you
Yeah.
give that example, bro, I just have to get this out because this literally just happened like right before we started recording. So I'm on Twitter, right? And then this girl basically went on Twitter and everybody just pretty much blew her up just because she said, "You don't see me on here talking about me having a new job, having a new car, buying a new house. You don't see me on here, and you guys are still doing it." And I thought that was the funniest thing ever, just as everybody else did, because they were like, "You just did. You just exposed yourself." Right. That's what I mean by like talking off the ledge. You sharing too much information.
Yeah. Too much. Yeah. Yeah. Too much info. So this is so I just want to be clear. There's multiple ways, right? And we're so this story. So I want to so I'm not gonna provide any timelines or anything like that. You listen to these episodes enough, you understand you know what I'm talking about. But for my own safety, I'm not gonna divulge all that information. So like I was working this job and go back and listen if you haven't listened to the episode. I don't know how this episode might be a year and a half. Oh, but we went through just discussing like vantage points and having different points of view and how that's important to like reach out and get input from people who are removed from a situation pretty much.
Yep.
But so here's a job. I was working this job. It's paying like 40, probably 40,000 a year. I don't think that's, I mean, I guess it's relative if it's good money, but based on like the way the world is and what things are going, I don't think that's what you need to really get where you get ahead unless you're like super disciplined and are like very savvy, extremely savvy. But so I was working this job. I started to see things. I really wasn't happy with it. I felt like there was some shady stuff going on and people were being taken advantage of. And I was getting pretty frustrated with what was going on. So I was trying to, put some things together, really try to like, really help people out. Cause I was like, man, these people are really getting set up. Right. So one day I'm working and then it's like, you just get like when you work these W-2 jobs enough, like it's going to get ridiculous at some point. At some point, maybe you're in a phase where you haven't seen it, or maybe you're in a phase where, yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Right. So, but no, I got so fed up with like what was going on because it wasn't sitting well with me. I walked in my supervisor's office and I told him that he could fire me if he wanted to. This man looked at me like he couldn't even understand what was happening in the moment because I'm pretty sure nobody has ever asked to be fired, like to volunteer themselves to be fired. But it was like, I literally, like, I walked to the edge, I just jumped off. That's exactly what I did. Like, nobody stopped me. Nobody knew what I was doing. And I put myself at risk, but that was like you make an emotional decision. But yeah, I went up in there. I was like, man, I was like, bro, you can fire me if you want to. I was like, I really don't care because everything that they were doing, with everything that I saw that was going on was against like everything that I'm about. And it just didn't sit well with me. So I was like, man, you can just fire me. So it is what it is. I didn't get fired. I ended up resigning. The funny thing about that story is that my supervisor resigned a week after I left. We went into a meeting and it was like, well, Marcus, you're leaving. You'll be gone at the end of the week. And then your supervisor, yeah, he's leaving next week too. So he's trying to get up out of there too. He's both trying to leave. That's why he was like, man, I gotta get. I probably told him that he's like, man, I gotta get out of here before he leaves. So it was just one of those situations. But I think after that or around that same time, I remember I was talking to my brother a lot during this time, and I was like on a break outside. And he was telling me, like I think I was sharing with him how frustrated I was with the situation because you find yourself doing it. That's one of the things. It's like when you find yourself doing things that are uncharacteristic of you, like that's that's a red flag. The fact that I was even thinking that was a red flag. But I remember talking to my brother that day, and this is after I started a business, and it wasn't like I'm trying to do all these things to figure out like money and things like this and try to create this income. And my brother, he kinda told me, he was like, I think he was trying to I don't know if I talked to him the day I did that. He might not even know that I did. I don't know. But I might have shared it with him, but I mean, he kinda put things in perspective and he just kinda told me, he's like, "That job that you have is keeping your dream alive, because that's what's paying for all me, like, working on this other stuff that I'm working on." And he told me that, and that kinda like, that he probably told me that after I did what I did, because if I told him I was gonna do that, he probably told me, "Don't do don't do that," right? But I probably told him that after the fact. But that is something that I've kept in mind is that, like, yeah, even though I'm doing like have my own business and I still have to work for people and I'm just trying to create a new value proposition for myself, it's understanding that the income that I receive that's fuel for my business. And I think him telling me that because somebody had told me that before, so I didn't see it that way. But if he would have told me that before, I probably might not have done that. But it didn't matter because I got out of there. My supervisor left. Everybody was miserable. So we just all got up out of there. But I think that's a good example of like, what if I had walked in there? I was like, you can fire me. Like, all right, you fired. And I'd be like, man, I got what I wanted. But I didn't really think about like, all right, I don't have a job yet. I did have a job like 2 or 3 weeks later after that because I was actively like applying and interviewing for stuff. But like, what happens and how does that change? Like, that might change how I interview and things like that for jobs and things like that because you don't have anything else going on. Or I might make some other impulsive decision that sets me back even further or something like that. Or I do something out of like, desperation or something like that. Desperation, that's dangerous. It's a dangerous thing. But I think in those moments, like when you do, I think it's pretty stupid. Looking back, I think it's pretty stupid on my part to do that. But I also learned in that scenario, like the lesson that I learned at that point, because at that point I probably have my own business for like actually started the process. It's probably been a year and a half. So I mean, you deal with a lot of failure. You don't know how that's going to impact you. But the one thing I learned is that if I work for somebody, the leadership has to be competent. They have to be skilled. I have to be able to like respect. I don't have to like them. I just have to respect their expertise and what they bring to the table. And that was a big thing. That's a big lesson that I learned from that. And then if they're, someone that is advertising, hey, we want to make a difference and really help people, then I can actually see the tangible results of that. And that they're not just like pulling the wool over people's eyes, because that doesn't sit well with me if I like actively see somebody ripping people off. So I learned through that experience, I learned that lesson about myself, which led into me learning some other lessons at the next job I had. But it's, I guess, just what I'm like, trying to, explain is that like you can do something impulsively, and if there's nobody there to save you, like you can really set yourself back. Like that decision could have really to walk in there and do that. Like that really could have set me back if I wasn't actively already looking for a job, if I wasn't saving money or things like that, and you just let your emotions get the better of you. And just I think having somebody that is able to speak to you rationally. Of course, I'm sharing my story so you can understand that I went about it in a backwards way. I did the dumb thing and then got advice on it afterwards. But it's something that I think is like extremely important to understand before you make what I'm saying is like a critical error. So that's if somebody's at work like pissing you off or you're tired of your employees. I've had employees I've been like frustrated with. I think everybody, if you're in management, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And they test you, they try you. It's not easy to fire people. There's all this red tape and things, and things like that. So there's a lot of ways to get frustrated at work and kind of lose your cool and just blow up. And then it costs you. It costs you everything in the short term. And then it spills into the long term. But I think that's what I was trying to get into when I was kind of thinking about this topic.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, man. And obviously, if you're still listening, that has some validity in it too as well. When I think of that, man, that experience, man, I was just going through all my situations, and I have some similar situations regarding that. I wouldn't say I was as bold as you in that regard, but I've been there before. I just may have handled it a different way. I don't know, man. I really don't have much to say regarding that. Just the whole topic itself, man, and just talking yourself, off the ledge, man. All I can really associate it with is just sabotage, man. Like you said, when those emotions get the best of you, man, that's when you're the most dangerous, especially because, someone's playing with your money, your dollars, and most importantly, they playing with your time. That's something you can't get back ever. So why would that not be possible to happening, right? The potential's there, especially if you really care about your time and your money. So I don't know what else where else you want to go with this, but I don't really have any questions for you, man. I feel like that was a solid story. I'm kind of stumped.
Yeah. Hey, well, guess we'll close on this. Hey, if you feel like you're in that situation, if you're about to listen, if you're about to like go off the ledge anyway, and it's a worse situation, just take a sick day anyway, because you're about to be without pay anyway. Worst case, just take a sick day, put together. That's another story that I'll tell at another time, because I actually had to do that at another job in the future from that story I just told. So that's another story for another day, right? But it was, what's funny about that, and I'm not going to go into it. What's funny about that is because I learned from that poor decision that I made. And I was like, I'm not going to do this again. And I approached it a different way. But I'll share that another time in another episode. But yeah, worst case scenario, just take a sick day. If you're about to do something crazy like that, just be like, all right, I'm just going to call off. Either they fire you, which is just going to happen anyway if you're doing something stupid like I did. But, or you get the day to kind of collect yourself, call some people that maybe have a different perspective, and just try to think through some other solutions and how you can kind of combat it. And that'll maybe alleviate you doing something that can have like some major setbacks. Cause when you do stuff like that, you think about like resigning and getting fired are two different things. resign, they can call they can call HR at that company and they can say, "Is the person eligible for rehire?" Yeah, they put in a notice. They fill within line of that doesn't mean if the person like the HR people are going to do what they're supposed to do and act within their boundaries. Like you're technically still eligible for rehire if you leave on good terms. So they can't really knock you for that if you put in your notice and things like that. So like keep that in mind. If you can deal with it for another 2 weeks, a month, just do that. That way you can save face. And maybe that gives you time to maybe go seek out someone within that organization and say, like, hey, I might need a reference. You got me? Because my supervisor hates me. He ain't about to give me anything. So just try to think that out in context. Somebody, but hey, thanks for listening as always. Hey, take care, be safe.
Later.
Gapstone